And so we begin. Yeah, I'm just about ready to go on the air live. So I'll be talking to you shortly. So as soon as we deal with a live broadcast. Thank you.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Sometimes it's hard. Good morning, folks. I see we can see a little bit more of the background image. So, particularly over in this neck of the woods, we can see the Spam Award. It's not a can of Spam. What it is, it's attached to like an old power supply from a Macintosh computer. And it was issued as a Spam Award to the guy who first invented Spam. I'll give you a hint who it was, if I've got it here. Did I bring it over? I must have. This guy.
You got a rattlesnake inside your house. You got a rattlesnake inside your house. Oh, yeah.
There's just one in here?
Yeah, I hope.
I hope. Ah, yes. Ah, that's better. That's better. The title of this show is Timelessness. And we seem to have an excellent connection, which I know it's kind of boring for people to be talking about this kind of thing, but technology's part of the game. So I'm going to bring up, it's actually just timeless. I'm going to bring up the title card for all to see. And that is the title card. And it's kind of sepia. And I almost thought about doing the show in sepia, but this is a photo, and if you look at, it's hard with the hat. If I had a cowboy hat on, but it's like, let's see if we can get, it's a picture of me in the 1800s. Like, I've often told you about this immortality thing. It's kind of weird. See, that has nothing to do with whether or not your face or cheeks become chipmunked out. I have to deal with chipmunks today, man. I'm not looking forward to that at all. I've got a chipmunk in my garden, and it's not
Good morning.
It's not a good morning for that. So today is Hump Day. It's June 23rd in the calendar year 2021, and it's not raining today. It's supposed to be sunny, so we can, if you're interested, we'll take a look at the weather.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And it's currently about 40 some degrees. I was just out. It's 45 degrees. I was just out in the backyard, so I had to double check here to make sure it was correct. It's clear skies, 45 degrees. It's going to be sunny all day. I'm going to take a walk down to the store after this program concludes. Reach a high of 72 today, 52 overnight, and Thursday it's going to be 75 and 55 overnight. Then it gets back up into the 80s towards the weekend. So that's the
Weather Watch forecast.
And that holds for most people in the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Upper Appalachian, Northern Appalachian, that general part of the former United States. And I'm always checking my synchronicity of mouth, which I have no idea why it does that, but it seems to be off a bit. So I don't know if that's because I have my phone on or not, but I'm going to keep my phone on anyway and try to work through this thing. I mean, I have an excellent connection, and it's cold enough today that I don't see the processing power being a factor. I've got my mug here, and I'm trying to negotiate. This is the morning show. And we'll see how much of that tooth stuff falls out drinking Dr. Pepper as opposed to Coca-Cola. It's a taste test. You can also see in the background, if you look over by this side, right about where my thumb is, you can see an old tube, GE tube. There's actually another tube there. The lighting's not the greatest. Great Solar Stuff logo. Everything you know is wrong. Eyes without a face. The old Tony Caravan thing, and everything you know is wrong up top. Codex book. Next to Codex book is the PhD. Maggie's in there somewhere, very dark. I'm not really shining too much light back there. So, timeless, What am I talking about? Showing this picture of me from the 1800s. All right? The cowboy hat on. I gotta get a cowboy hat. I gotta get I should probably have everything that they, everything that the village people had. That would just be funny.
Channel check. Left channel. Left channel.
So, all of that said, let's see what the empty trash sounds like. It was empty in the trash. The volume on this computer, the sound effects computer, seems to be just a tad little bit lower than my voice. But that doesn't matter. Anyway, kind of slept all right last night. Funny thing happened. I was watching the show, the playback of this show, and of course,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And as I was watching the playback, I mentioned Alexa, like what you could do with Alexa. And I had Alexa next. I was watching this upstairs in my bedroom, and I have one of the Echo Dot I talked about yesterday, the Alexa thing. And I ordered another one, by the way. That was like third generation. I ordered a fourth generation one because yesterday they extended Amazon Prime Day, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. But I managed to get one, the bigger one, for $24.95. So it's like, how could I not take it? And plus, they were going to pre-program it with my thing, my Amazon account in it. And I know all of this stuff is like privacy out the window, right? But the thing you got to understand, and by the way, these shows have taken a whole new tact, a whole new, they're moving in an entirely new direction. The idea is
Grab another flashback from yesteryear.
Yeah, we're just going to flash back to yesteryear. This is black and white TV. You got to imagine, this may make some noise. I'm going to move this down a tad. You have to imagine that it's the 1940s or the 1950s. I mean, technically, a black and white TV would be the 50s. The screen wouldn't be this clear, and I actually could even mess with it to make it look like it's, an old TV screen. You know, the old TV screens, what used to happen, and sometimes this messes things up, is they were much like, it was more like this, right? You know, which didn't seem to take. Why didn't it? Doesn't like opacity. All right. Well, forget it. I almost gave you a taste of old TV. But in any event, TV did exist in the 40s. You know, Truman had and Roosevelt as well. They had like video conferencing during the war. You know, it's like I always try to tell people, the government is always at least 50 years ahead of technology that you have. I mean, that's part of what DARPA is all about these days. But like, you know, the internet was created, you know, in the 70s, right? Didn't DARPA create the internet in the 70s? I mean, I could verify that. New window. When was the internet invented? January 1, 1983. That's a lie. No. When was the internet first invented? 1960s. The first workable prototype of the internet came in the late 1960s with the creation of ARPANET, or the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, originally funded by the U.S. Department of Defense. In other words, DARPA. ARPANET used packet switching to allow multiple computers to communicate on a single network. So, the early 1960s. Isn't that amazing? You didn't know that. That's what I say, you don't know what you don't know. So, the internet is old, 60 years old. In fact, let's just for the sake of it say, you know, let's celebrate the 60th birthday of the internet today. And that's what I was trying to tell you. The government's always, it's like 50 years really. And it falls in line. And I could go on and on with like lists of different things that were around 50 years ago that you think are contemporary. And it's crazy. It really is. But it's not crazy. So my idea is, and I wrote in the title of this show, which I believe I can access without causing too much problems. But the name of this show is Living in Your Own World. And in the description, which would be This Way to the Beach, you are in control of your consciousness and the way you perceive the world. Likewise, you decide how people perceive you and your world. The subconscious is merely a programmable element of your bioelectric brain. That is how those who wish to control you condition you with indoctrination and propaganda. You are free. And that's a very important statement. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you have access to the description or whatever manner in which you're watching this thing, I highly recommend you reread that thing. Because it's this bioelectric brain. Most people think of their consciousness, what they think of their consciousness is really their subconscious mind, their bioelectric brain, not their higher consciousness, which science admits exists. And that's called the hard problem of consciousness, and something I deal with in this book, Codex. Which, buy it. Get it. Why aren't you? Right? I'm working on my next book. So, and you haven't even read the last 9. I've got 9 books out there. They're all for sale on Amazon. You can get them on Apple Books or Kindle. But I prefer you go to Amazon and buy a hard copy. You know, you want to hold that thing in your hand. Besides, when the grid goes down, you got to have something to do. You're going to want to read. That's why you're going to want to have one of these things here. It's got a nice little reading light on the back. And it's solar chargeable. And you could also listen to the...
Friday, sunny. Highs around 80.
NOAA radio. So you're listening to Tony Caravan Worldwide Webcast. And I call it a webcast. It's not a podcast, or any of that nonsense. So these shows, like I say, they've taken a new direction. After the 125, consecutive shows. Not that we're still not doing consecutive shows. It's just that, from now on in,
making up the rules as we go along.
That it's that kind of thing. And
you have actually opened the door to another dimension.
Another dimension. It's dimension of time. You're in a different time. And we're going to play in that different time. Yesterday I had a few drinks and I was testing out my Echo Dot Amazon Alexa thing. And hopefully she can't hear me from here. She's upstairs. But I was playing different music, and then and at one point I put on like 40 blues. It was like blues and jazz station. And I was listening to like Dorothy Bainbridge, however you say her name. And this was like Smooth Operator was the name of this album. It's on Verve Records. And if you think of that Sade or Sade, some people would have said, actually like kind of copied that, now that I think about it. But I was listening to this, I was getting into the whole 40s scene. And, it was good. It was, it was an experience. And so I'm going to stick with this black and white thing from now on. Because I decided, like my description, that I'll choose the world I want to live in. And that people can perceive me the way they want to, but I'm going to control that. And I don't really care about what people think or say or any of that stuff. I mean, it's inevitable, that we all suffer from certain things. It's part of when you have empathy, for example. It's kind of a two-way street in a sense. Not that another person is empathetic, but it's that you have these things, so you're empathetic towards another person's lot in life or suffering or something along those lines. But at the same time, because of that, your sensitivity to that and your sensitivity in general kind of makes you a little self-aware of the persona that you're projecting as well. And that's something you have to fight internally sometimes. Some people do it better than others. And like the true narcissist is the type of person that just is like completely just, so self-centered that, and has no empathy, that, well, that doesn't even come into a factor. So a feeling human being is more likely to be conscious of their persona, and that. And what I'm trying to say is there's nothing wrong with having, I would hope that you would be a sensitive, feeling, empathetic human being, as opposed to a narcissist or some kind of sociopath. But there's certain degrees to that, and you could take it too far, right? And some people do. So some people are so self-conscious that they're almost living life entirely based on the way they are perceived or people perceive them, so they lose their own identity. And what I'm trying to say is that it's important that you understand your own consciousness, like the you, right? I call it the soul, life being a soul experience. It's you. You're walking through this world, experiencing life in the first person as I gesticulate. Just can't help doing it. It's the blood. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA. My tooth bothered me for the better part of the night. It was really bad early on. It's there right now. I don't know if you can see any. It's hard to see, but I took an aspirin and a Tylenol this morning. Breakfast was a couple handfuls of blueberries. So, anyway, that's that. So, I suffer from vanity a little bit. I try to, you fight that. But that's okay, to be a little, to have some little bit of self-consciousness. I mean, some would say that's have some self-respect, that kind of thing, decency, right? Of course, me belching on the air sometimes goes against that. But the idea is that you can't, in a society today, I was trying to, because I'm constantly trying to think about how do I go forward in a world gone mad, right? In a society gone mad, and stay out of it, as opposed to the way I've gone through these progressions of being very vocal on things on injustices, on politics, on media, criticisms of media, what I call the corporatocracy and the organized crime syndicate and all that kind of stuff. It's how do you walk that fine line, right? Or is it necessary that you do walk a fine line? And is the idea that you can just not pay attention to that? It's like the old schoolyard bully. It's, what do you do? Do you give this person attention? Somebody who craves attention? Or do you ignore them? Somebody shouting something, it's like what I talk about, like people who are triggered by things. It's like this, so you encounter somebody who's got a foul mouth. Like, for example, I honestly, genuinely have a neighbor that I literally added about almost 3 feet, close to 3 feet, to the fence, to a portion of the fence between me and my neighbor, because it's not that she had a foul mouth, which she did. I mean, really, for a woman in her 70s, I mean, just trash mouth. But I don't care. I'm not offended by somebody saying some word. But she was using, the words, that you don't use. And in an integrated neighborhood like this, which I've said many times before, this is a very integrated neighborhood where I live, because I live at the poverty level by choice, and I'm happy and content and all that stuff. If I didn't have a pain in my mouth right now, I'd be happy as a proverbial pig in what. So I had to put up a fence and just basically, because she used to lean over the fence and just butt into my business while I'm just trying to hang out in my garden or just get a suntan, and she would just feel compelled to rattle off all these things and use these words, right? Now, those words don't trigger me, and I notice most people in my neighborhood, and let me get specific, people of color, of different nationalities, religions, etc. The vast majority of people I encounter aren't really triggered by these so-called words. It seems it's more the media type of people that want to utilize them to sell used cars and commercials, and politicians want to use them to get votes, Vote for me and I'll set you free. It's like I'm already free. So that's why I talk about, so to me the idea is that being triggered is something that you should strive to not be triggered, right? Because words are just words. It's the old sticks and stones thing. It's like, so what? It's that person, the person who resorts to that sort of, bigotry or whatever, is, they have the problem. There's something lacking inside of them. It's, that they have to somehow project, demonize, scapegoat onto others for no purpose whatsoever. There's no gain. See, that's like that shirt I showed you that I have. And I do recommend you go to TonyCaravanLive.com. It sounds like I'm always selling these things, but I made these things for you. I bought every one. I made them for myself too. It's like anything I create. I write my books for myself. Yesterday, the cool thing was, with the Echo Dot thing, the Alexa thing, I had it play music by me. In fact, I encourage that. If you get one of those things, just say, the name, play music by Tony Caravan, and you can listen for like a couple hours of my songs. Hey, some are okay, some aren't. And I discovered another thing as well, that on the app, it'll show you can open up the app simultaneously to having this thing play. Because what I did was, there's an output, an audio out, and I put that audio out into my system in my bar, so I had my big Bose speakers playing this music, and it was loud and clear and a really nice sound. But the app on your phone or whatever will actually show you what's playing. In fact, this picture of Dorothy here was a screen capture I took from my phone that actually shows you the album or whatever, the record that was being played. Excuse me. Just sharing that with you. And I started it off by saying a little bit about privacy. It's like, forget about privacy. I told you the story about how I tracked people down, hackers and all that kind of stuff. There is no privacy. Right now, there's like, I'm being monitored by YouTube to make sure I don't like say a thing, right? Which I'm not going to, because I'm not interested in that. But you're being listened to by all of your devices. Every text you make, every tweet, post, all that stuff exists in the cloud, and it's constantly their algorithms sifting and sorting through that filing and creating these demographic profiles. And they're even into predictive behavior now, so that they've got you in classifications where they're saying this person is likely to do this, that, the other, And that's why people like me confuse the crap out of them, because I'm like all over the place. And it's not like I intentionally do that. It's just that's how I am. And so that's like, that gets, that draws attention, They go like, this guy's up to something, or what is he trying to do, or, It's like figure something out. But privacy does not exist in the year 2021. There's nothing you can do. None of these like VPNs and all this stuff they advertise on YouTube and stuff. They know everything. So I'll give you an example. You have a okay, so say you waste money on one of these VPNs. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's this like thing where it hides your IP address so it looks like you're browsing the internet from Copenhagen or some place, right? The thing that you don't realize is that there's a chip in your phone, right? Which you can't, which is in front of you. And that means they know exactly where you are. Whether your phone's turned off, on, airport mode, it doesn't really matter. Or airplane mode, right? They always know where you are, right? Google Maps knows your location. Your phone, everything you do. When you go to the grocery store, for example, and you use your ATM to buy something, and say you don't use your ATM, say you use cash, you think you're beating the system. For some reason, you're some paranoid person about privacy. There's a camera there with facial identification, all right? And they know what you bought, all right? This is a system. People think, oh, that's sci-fi. That's like that Minority Report movie or something. No, it isn't. Philip K. Dick was right, and like everything else, like 50 years ahead of his time. But the idea is that they know the person in front of you and the person in back of you. So chances are one or the other of them has a phone, right? If you have a car, your car's being tracked. You buy something online. You can't be, unless you are some kind of hermit out in the woods, they know everything about you. There's just no way, there's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. And so you have to basically look at privacy and say, so what? Right? And that's how I look at it. So you embrace it, embrace the technology and use it to your advantage, instead of trying to build up some false wall that really doesn't work and doesn't exist. There is no way to hide. And starting now is too late, right? So they already know everything about you. I try to tell you, they know more. And who's they? Remember, this whole thing started out by big tech, what I call a corporatocracy. And the idea was basically to just sell you stuff, to find a better way of marketing to people. Excuse me. I was a creative director in an advertising agency. I know about this stuff, and I was in the entertainment business and radio and all that kind of stuff, and film. I know these things. I spent years of my life doing this. It's called demographic profiles, right? You want to know who your ideal consumer is. You want to know who's going to buy your product. You want to know as much information as possible before you launch a product, or just how you're going to have an ad campaign, or how you're going to sell it, where you're going to distribute it, who's going, And so the more you know, the better, you have control. It's just good business to understand demographics. So they've been collecting this information for, decades and decades, way before the internet. We go back to AT&T, all right, and the phone system. They were, it just surprises me when I see people that they fall for so many things, or they They think everything's sci-fi. It's like it's the year 2021. Wake up, man. Right? They know everything about you. Everything. They know more about you than your spouse. They know more about you than your parents. They know more about you than anyone you encounter. All right? Because they know everything you've purchased. You see? Every place you've been. I've said this before. I get these things once a month from like Google, which is weird. And it shows every place I've been over the past 2 decades or so. And it lists the street address and with a date when I went there. And it's tied into like Google Maps. I'm having a thing today where I can't talk. Probably because I had a few cocktails yesterday. There's going to be a lot of clearing of the throat today. If that bothers you, you know. Well, you're going to have to deal with it. So, forget about privacy. All right? I've forgotten about privacy, and this show isn't about privacy. I'm just trying to explain about how you can be your own person, be your own man, be your own woman. And you decide what world you want to live in. It's your world, right? And how people perceive you. I've said before in the past about the idea of you can reinvent yourself every day if you want to, right? You could reinvent yourself this afternoon. Not only physically, but just do whatever you want to. You know, you're the instrument of change in your life. It's not society. It's not a politician. It's not the media. It's not the people that you work with, right? You can't allow people to get into your head, all right? Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to constantly program your bioelectric brain, all right? And most people are programmed. So I've decided that I'm going to live in like the 1940s and 50s, maybe the 60s, and jump into the 70s every now and then. But when I jump into the 70s, I'm going to keep using a black and white TV. So what does that sound like? And so I may even change this set a little bit and to get more into the way it was. I don't know if they sell these anymore. Do you know what this is actually? You're saying, oh, that's an old phone thing. No. This is actually an old phone thing that's hooked up to my iPhone. I bought that a while back. I gave one to my relative of mine too. Yes, indeed.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
Let's get this show on the road.
So, let's think about this for a second. So, every time I turn on YouTube, whether it's upstairs to watch my my own video or a couple of videos that I follow, that inevitably are usually disappointing, but something to entertain me with or whatever. You know, inevitably there's things that are in front of your eyes that are what we would call current events, which are all, you know, politics, because politics is pop culture. All right. And everyone's caught up in a cult of personality. Right. That is a fact. That's not up for discussion. It's not up for argument. It's just the way it is. All right. Everything you know is wrong, and what you don't know, you don't know. You can't argue with that. All right? Think about those statements. And if you're into it, get the shirts, wear them, and that will be thought-provoking for people. Just like I said, the next "then what" shirt with the question mark to people, right? You know, let people, let people see that, like, let their little programmed brains kind of like short circuit a little bit. You'll be helping them, all right? Their little bioelectric brains that have been indoctrinated, conditioned, programmed, and nightly absorbing propaganda from people that want to do everything from sell them cars to just manipulate them and control them. Like I say, it's not all nefarious. In many cases, most of this stuff has its roots in just selling you products and services. I mean, that's it. It's just that the government and the bureaucrats said, hey, look at this stuff. Look at all this information, big data, that the big tech companies have. We got to get our hands on that. They're collecting more. They have more information than the NSA and the CIA, which is true. And that's why you see this unholy alliance between companies like Google and, the CIA, NSA. I mean, Amazon is hosting the CIA on their AWS servers. All right? Think about that. So what's the difference, right? Who's who, right? Or is it just one big thing? That's what I'm trying to say. It's a corporatocracy. It's not a government anymore. But these people that are caught up in politics and think, oh, we're going to change this by bringing in a cult of personality, some new, save America or build back better. I don't care what you talk about. It's all nonsense. Because we're beyond the point. There is no political system anymore. It's just a corporatocracy. And above the corporatocracy on a global level, it's an international crime syndicate. That's what the Davos set is. Always has been, too, by the way. Right? So, all that aside, right? Live your life. And I've chosen to live my life in the 40s and the 50s. And occasionally I'll jump into the 60s or the 70s. But I prefer a world and a channel that's black and white TV. When things were simpler. Because the complications that they've created are complications. Think of that statement. The complications, all right, that they've created are complications. And so the less you get involved in this complicated world, right, the less complications you're going to have in your life. Because life isn't complicated, all right? Life is just what I call, an experience. It's a consciousness experience, a soul experience, whatever you want to call it. The duality of man, all right? You could walk around with a bioelectric brain and a programmed subconscious, all right, and acting like a robot, an android, and being susceptible to all of these things, or you can be you, a conscious, being, and live your life and choose to do whatever you want to do. There's no restrictions, right? I've talked about it before. Nobody's fought adversity as much as I have. Nobody's been, I've been in peril and harm's way. I've had cancer diagnosis. I've been poor. right? I've slept in a car. Right? I'm living at the poverty level right now, though I prefer it. But I've also held these positions in, major cities: New York, L.A., D.C., Philly. I've traveled around the world, and I've made good money and left, and basically was a part of things that I actually left my name or my stamp or the fact that I was here. I was a part of things and helped move things forward. In other words, some people use the phrase "make a difference." I made a difference when I was involved in many of my exploits, so to speak. So I don't buy into the idea that there's nothing you can do. All right? Because I know what it's like. I know the frustration. I've been at the verge of, of like the lowest of the low. But you just have to find, it's like that Rudyard Kipling poem, you just got to find the will within you to say, hold on, or whatever, however it goes. I'm not a memorizer. I never was a memorizer. I always like to interpret and understand things, comprehend something, as opposed to just, reciting it, memorization. That's another form of indoctrination that people have, right? Conditioning with kids in schools and stuff. Memorize this. It's like, don't memorize that. Understand it. You see? It's a big difference between memorizing and understanding. Just reciting something from memory. Well, that's fine. Okay. But what does it mean? That's what I come back to then. Like somebody says, even in an issue like a climate issue or something like that, someone will just like repeat or parrot a thing they heard. And I would be like, yeah, but explain it to me. What do you mean? What's that based upon? How do you, what's your understanding of exactly what that means? And watch what their face, watch the expression on their face. While you're wearing a shirt, one of my shirts that says, "You don't know what you don't know." Get out there and buy them. Get the morning show mug. Continue this till I keel over. Because I am no longer going to allow myself to deal with their idiocy. And if you want to come along for the ride, I highly recommend it. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Otherwise, this is your life.
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
It doesn't have to be, man. It could be.
Really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny? It's funny.
You're funny.
Good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
The way you tell a story and everything, man.
Okay.
Life is to enjoy. It's full of hardship, tragedy, pain, loss, and all those things. But it's also full of like extreme exaltation, happiness and fun and the best feelings. You've got these 5 senses. Just think about them. You can use those five senses and be suffering, right? It's perception. Perception is reality. You can perceive the world in a certain way, and just, it's the glass half empty versus the glass half full idea. You could use your ears to listen to really good music like I did yesterday, right? Or you could use your ears to listen to some talk radio host or television person that's like just beating some drum and just downbeat about this, that, the other, and we must fight this, right? You could use your eyes to look at the beauty of nature, the beauty of in my case, the beauty of a woman, right? Animals, nature, whatever. Or you could use them to sit there and watch, some cult of personality character, right? Lying to you or making promises or whatever. Right? You can taste good food with your mouth. You could use your body, your skin to embrace another person. Right? You've got these senses. Use them to experience life. And you choose that experience. Sometimes you're going to be shot down, broke and broken-hearted. But you recover. And if you don't recover, you die. And then nothing you can do about that. But you don't have to die. And you don't have to. It's not the end of the world. Nothing is the end of the world except the end of the world. And there's nothing you can do about the end of the world, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is, as we continue with these things, just try to provide entertainment, conversation, insight into things that exist outside of this repetitive political, pop cultural, cult of personality scene. It's very simplistic and very repetitive too, by the way. It's boring. I mean, I guess the main reason that I've jumped out of that, jumped ship from there, is because it was boring. It's the same thing over and over. It's like I say with, politics and things like that in general, they're repetitive cycles. Like the names change, right? But it's the same old story, and not in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Left or right, Republican or Democrat, over decades, it's like they change every 4 or 8 years, but things go down, don't get better. So they're two sides of the same counterfeit coin, right? They're self-interested, They're narcissistic sociopaths. Some are psychopaths, especially the ones at the top, what I call the international crime syndicate folks. I mean, they're psychopaths. Many of them, sociopaths for sure. So why invest your time? Why put so much of your life into that world? It to be diverted away from living life. I mean, yesterday I had a really good time. Like I say, there's probably people out there in AA or something like that. And I'm sorry, man, but I don't buy into that scene. I sat around for about 2 hours, drinking some beers, puffing on a couple of cigars, listening to some really good music, which I had control over, right? And at my bar, house bar, and it was really cool. It was a beautiful experience. I wasn't knocked down drunk or anything like that. When I was done, I ate some food. I actually had some leftover kielbasa, some melted cheese on top of it. Man, kielbasa is tasty, right? I went upstairs and I watched the rest of my video from yesterday morning, and caught up on a couple other video things that I watch, and then I'm in the middle of still binge watching a show, and I watched some of that until I got tired. Then I went to sleep. And then I had the old, Alexa thing. I have to whisper because it's upstairs. It might hear me. It was the weirdest thing when I actually was, because it's trained on my voice, so it heard my voice on the TV, the YouTube TV, and it started playing music because I was giving an example yesterday. So I had to say stop, so who knows, could have heard me, earlier, and it's up there playing music. It doesn't really matter, I don't care, I can't hear it. But what I was trying to say is that I'm embracing that kind of technology. I like the idea of being able to just, have access to the entire music library, to know what the weather is outside, to ask a question. If this technology is going to exist, might as well use it and be a part of it. And the hell with this privacy aspect. There's no privacy. Right? There is no privacy. So why pretend? And why waste your time? Why worry about it? And politics, why are you wasting time on politics when you could be listening to cool music, or you could be doing something else? Like I say, my interests aren't the same interests as everybody else, but it's, basically,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
It's my show, so I'm hoping that at some point there will be a fan base. But if there isn't, I'm doing this show for myself, because I honestly, genuinely have watched every one of my shows back, all 2 hours in length, and usually enjoy them. I don't fast forward it or anything. If I have to go into the restroom, I put it on pause. Though actually I have a speaker hooked up in my restroom. So, my house is wired for sound, I've always been that way, technology type of guy. So I like to, I've got a speaker in the WC down here I showed you yesterday, the half bath. And why they call it a half bath when it's just basically a toilet and a sink. I've got one in my full bath upstairs, which actually has a bath. Oh, and by the way, I took a shower after the show yesterday, and the water went right down. So that second overnight Drano thing, for those of you who are regular listeners, viewers, it worked. So I'm hoping that it keeps on working, because today I'm going to be doing a lot of some outdoor work. I have to force myself. I'm going to walk to the store. There's a few things I think I need to check my list. And yeah, it's worth, but I want to fix my porch stairs. I want to put a coating of that concrete mix. It's not really concrete. It's mortar and a bonding agent and water. You mix it up into like a bucket, pail of some kind, to the consistency of paint, and you just paint it on your steps. And what it does is it makes old concrete look new, and it fills in the cracks. The thing is, it only lasts for about a year, but it will last for about a year. But if you're in winter climates and you shovel, or use rock salt to totally destroy it. I've got to clean some weeds in the front around a pole outside my house, because even though I pay taxes, the city doesn't seem to do anything there. Those weeds get around this, telephone pole, or whatever you want to call it. I have to deal with the chipmunk in the backyard. I've got to maybe write a letter to the sewer authority and complain about the fact of the way the street is. I don't know if I'll have time to do that today, especially if I'm also walking to the grocery store. And there's a few other things like that. So I've got a pretty busy day ahead of me. So that's what I'm doing. And none of that involves any of this TV, which I no longer have. And none of that involves worrying about any kind of social issue or any of that stuff. See, to me, social issues are my life, and where I live and what I do. And I don't know how this happened, really. I mean, I do know how it happened. It was a side effect of the media. Marshall McLuhan back in the 60s warned about it. The media is the message and all of that. And others as well. Some guy, I could name a few other people, but some of their stuff was used in negative propaganda ways, so I'd rather not mention their names. Yeah, there was a belch somewhere in there. So, there's life without politics, is what I'm trying to say. There's life without television, media, all right? And you just have to ignore, so you ignore it. And someone say, well, you can't live in a vacuum. You can't not be aware of what's going on around you. No, why did I say that? No. Don't I give you the weather forecast every day? Okay? That's what's going on. You need to be concerned about the weather. Whether or not you need an umbrella or not, or you're going to be spending a day outside, picnicking, or hanging out in your backyard. You're going to want to know if you got plans for the weekend.
Weekend weather.
You're going to want to know that kind of thing. If you've got a job, you deal with whatever your job is, the things you have to do. If you're retired or semi-retired, you deal with the basic elements of life and living. And find a way to have as much fun as possible. That's a word missing, from the vernacular today. It's almost like these people are afraid to have fun. Do you notice that? Happiness. Good times. People, it's almost like you should feel guilty about being happy. No. And the other thing is, you gotta, when you have hard times, you've got to raise yourself up, and you got to find the will to, you know, to lift yourself up. I've done it. I've done it many times. I've hit rock bottom. It's doable. And you also have to live in a realistic world. And that's another thing people have a problem with. Again, it reverts back to the media. Because they see a commercial, or they see, you know, a movie or a TV show, or the lifestyle, or they hear something on the news. And they think, oh, I need to live that. There's something lacking in my life because I don't have that cookie cutter house in that cookie cutter neighborhood. And I don't have an SUV. And I don't have, you know, this, that, the other. And I look at them and, you know, and say, what are you talking about? Right. You know, the thing I'm talking about, someone say, yeah, but you're a hypocrite because you're just talking about buying some, you know, thing from Amazon. Yeah, for $24.95. Okay? Not a $24,000 car. Right? Or a $150,000 home or something. You know, you'd be frugal. I go to the Dollar Tree when I get a chance. You know, why not? Why should I pay more than $1 for something? You know, it's the same with Walmart. You know, look, the damage is already done. Let's face it. All the big box stores, they destroyed the mom-pop traditional way of life. That's why I say it's the former United States. You know, it's been the title of a couple of my shows. You know, things have changed. Things are not the same, right? You've seen this, you know, on my various webcasts. But, you know, that's called, it's acceptance. You have to accept that. And that's the same thing with this, like, you know, build back better, save America. Think about those, the absurdity of both sides of those counterfeit coins, cult of personality, you know, pop culture of politics statements. You know? Get my shirt that says, then what? You haven't done it in decades. You're not going to do it in another decade. Okay? Things have changed, and so you adapt to the change and deal with the reality of the times, and you live through it instead of wasting time. That's why I say protesting is an exercise in futility. Voting is an exercise in futility. What if they held an election and nobody showed up? Right? That would be funny. And then they gave somebody 80 million votes, but there were cameras showing no one showed up at the polls. Then they'd have something to explain. Because it is fixed like that. I mean, the whole concept is that it doesn't really matter. You know, these decisions are made, whether we like them or not. Who cares? Who cares? They're not making a difference. They're not making a difference. Focus on your life. Be who you are. You know, don't let other people, you know, dictate to you how to live your life, and get some fun, happiness in your life. You know, I've often talked to people, you know, when we've like reminisced about the past. And you may or may not have done this. how sometimes when we were the brokest, we seem to have had the most fun. And it's true. You know, when you barely had had any money at all or any, possessions and stuff, you seem to be laughing the most and having the most fun. And were appreciative of doing something that when you finally had a few bucks and you went and did something or enjoyed something. Because, as cliche as it sounds, the best things in life are free, and they still are. And happiness is not something that could be bought. You could temporarily, get some sort of satisfaction and pleasure, if you had a windfall of, money, somebody who won the lottery, I guess could have some sort of material happiness for, a certain period of time. But it gets old after a while. And you've all seen those stories about, the tragedies of the lottery winners, right? Because the fact of the matter is, it's human nature takes over. Materialism is not the answer. Your senses don't have nothing to do with the material world. You don't live in a material world, whatever that Madonna song was or something. You don't. You're a part of the natural world. And the natural world will give you happiness. That's where happiness is. And this thing that I do, this idea of living below the poverty level and paying less than $200 a month for my mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and owning a house with a yard and a garden, where my biggest problem was dealing with this chipmunk today that's deciding to live in a portion of my garden where I have some of my peppers and my tomatoes, which are very important to me. Some of my key crops. So I have to put it in, figure out some sort of security measures to restrict that thing from burrowing and destroying whatever. I'll be messing around with that. Hopefully I won't get bit by something. But that's my life. That's the thing I'm doing. And it's going to be sunny and whatever I said, 72 degrees or something. Which in the sun back there in my garden portion, because I have a south-facing patio and garden, it'll end up being like 80 degrees back there. But it'll probably be really nice and a dry heat, and it'll be good. It'll be fun. So, to each their own, But there's whatever makes you happy, pursue it. And if you're in a downer right now and, you're down and out, you're suffering. I mean, I got a toothache right now. It sucks. It really sucks. And I can't find a dentist. We're not accepting any new patients. I've called around. Yeah. So, I mean, but you just gotta plow through. Keep your eye on the ball, what your goal is. I've said before, I wish people would have watched my videos. Where I talked about you take a piece of paper, don't use a computer. take a sheet of paper, letter-sized sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, lengthwise. And on the left, put likes. On the right, put dislikes. You know? Things that make me happy, things that make me unhappy, that type of thing. And assess your current life. And do this over a period of a week or two, because you can't just sit down and figure it out instantly. Things will come to you. And look at those lists. And if you have more, if your life is filled with more things that make you unhappy and that you dislike, then you consider it's a time for a change. And you can't just change overnight. You don't just run. You have to plan it. And that's how I basically managed to do what I'm doing. I mean, is my life ideal right now? No. But it's not a living hell. And like I say, I still manage to have a couple days out of the week which are good. And this is from a guy who spent, a year or so, actually about a year and a half ago, who spent almost in and out of the hospital for over 6 months with like operations and stuff, thinking I was dying and believe me, time goes on, things change. You have to maintain a sense of positivity. When you have loss, you grieve, but the grieving process works. You got to work through it. When you're ill, you have to deal with it. Not everyone gets better, but that's something you come to grips with too. When you're broke, you live within your means and you accept it, and you try to find some way, or at least one day or something that will give you happiness and peace of mind while you're broke. Or you set a plan and gradually get to that point where you're back on your feet. And sometimes it takes a long time. But once you achieve it, then you're like, then all that time and hardship and everything that went before just seems to kind of fade, into the background, And so focus on your senses, your 5 senses, and the happiness. The experience of life, like I say, it's a soul experience, conscious experience. No idea what's going on outside. So, I've got that thing going too. Trucks go down the street and my chair shakes when I'm upstairs. But I'm living with it. I'm going to send a letter to the Water and Sewer Authority and threaten to sue them. And hopefully some other people will do the same thing independently. May or may not have any effect whatsoever. But at least I'm going to make it known. I also set up a Twitter account that I take pictures of the things in my neighborhood. It's not a personal account. It's like a neighborhood account I set up. Think about doing something like that too. And so I'm basically documenting, things, and I put the picture up and mention it. I've had like a store that was, I forget the issue I had with them, and I tweeted about it and did a, at them. They ended up they still follow that site now. And I think I got them to fix the issue. And these are little things that people can do independently of politicians or news media people or whatever. So if you're going to use social media or this technology, use it to your advantage and positivity, positivity. So it's an enjoyable thing, I like the entertainment aspect of it, right? I like doing this. And I like the ability to expose injustices through it without being somebody out there protesting, which is an exercise in futility, or elections, which are an exercise in futility. See, everything's fixed, and you can't change it. It's that line from, like, Jesus Christ Superstar, right? You can't change it. Politicians make promises. They can't keep them. Sometimes they do. The things that they're allowed to do, the things that inevitably probably would have gotten done. And there's injustices committed against all of us. But see, I don't buy into any of this stuff, any of this triggering, any of this, protest, injustice, social justice stuff. Because like I said, I've come up through it all. And I don't buy, the color of somebody's skin or their religion or whatever. Sorry, And if you're in a situation like that, where it's like the idea, it's a bully in the schoolyard. Just get out of it. If there's literally nothing, if you're being accosted, or you have a constant problem, and you can't, and there's no justice for you, you feel that there's no justice for you, just organizing my cans. Drank a lot of caffeine today. Then get out of that situation. Make a change. That's why I say make a list. And you say, well, that's like, that's being a defeatist, or that's letting them win. Yeah, it's like the bully in the schoolyard. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? It's like I did with the neighbor. I just got tired of it. What was I going to do? Confront her on her racism, bigotry, or whatever the heck, wherever her crazy head was at, right? Nosiness, meddling in my affairs, whatever. It's like, I just put up a wall. There are peaceful, sensible ways of dealing with things. If you're surrounded by people that aren't treating you right, then make a move. I've done it. I've moved so many times, it's pathetic. But, I move for jobs, but I also sometimes just move because I just didn't like the area. But like where I am now, I'm pretty much stuck here now because I, bought this house and I'm, at this level. So it's not like I can, pick up and move. So I have to adapt. So how do I adapt? Rather than confrontation with some psycho person, I just ignore them. Put up the wall. Right? Forget confrontation. you know, if you have the opportunity to do something in a positive way, like I did. You know, expose things, write a letter to it. I think I told yesterday, I once felt I was being extorted by some, you know, ambulance chaser, lawyer, extortionist collection type of group. And I just, you know, I went to the, you know, through the proper channels. State Attorney General's office, a senator. You know, people don't realize that you know, you want to use politicians, then use them, you know, what they're there for. You know, send a letter to when they say call your congressman, call your thing. You know, very few people ever do that. You know, that's positive things. If you want to, you know, deal with politics, yeah, let somebody know. Right? Don't go out there on the streets and think that some cardboard sign on a stick is going to make a difference just because some television cameras show up and it's on TV and some announcer on some channel that's either left, right, red, blue, whatever, you know, and you're getting reinforced, right? Thinking, oh yeah, we're making progress, you know. No, you're not. You're just giving them the media free content so they could sell more used cars, new cars, and pharmaceuticals and other bright and shiny objects. That's all you're doing. You're giving them free content. If there's an injustice, there's ways of dealing with it. All right? And if there's an overwhelming injustice against you and you feel threatened, then you need to, and you've exhausted all rational, reasonable avenues, and you're not getting any result. Then you get away from that situation. As hard as it is, well, my family and friends, you all need to get out of there. There are places all over. It's like I say with people who are like, you know, their houses are underwater. They can't afford this or that. The white handkerchief. So move to a neighborhood like I did. Buy a house that costs less than 20 grand. You know, spend some time looking. You could shop online for a house now. You just go to like one of these places like Zillow. Right? Think about it. You know, these are the best of times and the worst of times. And there's no doubt there are people that are living in abject poverty and are being victims, are suffering, and all of that stuff. But like I say, take it from somebody who's lived in abject poverty at times in my life, who's been victimized, all right, and who's, you know, but who's risen, you know, multiple times back and forth. And it's, you know, I think it was somebody from like the Southland Corporation. Those were the people that made 7-Eleven. I'm not sure if this is exactly the story. You can research this if you want to. But I remember, I think in an interview with one of those guys, that it was like they went from opening to bankruptcy to rising up again to bankruptcy or something. It was like the third time was the charm or something. And you'll find that in a lot of people who were in business, you know, as well as just people like me or other people who've, you know, who had good positions, rose to the top. It's that, you know, you were at the top of your game, and then you maybe hit rock bottom. But then you rose again, and that time you rose higher. All right? And you may have fallen even again due to personal reasons, health reasons, relationships, whatever. But then you rose even higher. Okay? And that's all up to you. That's your empowerment. And yeah, it's all right to like roll up into a ball and cry. Okay? You know? To be realized, when things are really bad. It's okay. You're an emotional human being and stuff. Let it out. It's like the grieving process. Grieve. But there comes a time when the grieving stops. There comes a time when feeling sorry for yourself stops. There comes a time when you have to pick yourself up and make a plan and gradually get back on your feet. And as hard as it is, and the struggle it is, and sometimes there'll be setbacks, and it might take you 3 times. But once you get back, you'll forget all about that, living in the car. You'll forget all about whatever the ridiculous situation you had. All right? And don't set unrealistic goals for yourself. The bright and shiny objects. I must have the big SUV. I need this. No one's going to marry me if I don't have a big house. Or if I don't have these clothes, I'll never get this, that, the other. You can work through it. Figure it out. I know a girl buys designer clothes at the thrift stores because wealthy people, like, they put stuff in there, they donate it to them. Name brand clothes, right? Like I said, I can go to the Dollar Tree and buy things for $1. Spend like $12 and come out with 12 items that someone else comparably shopping somewhere at Target even or whatever would have spent like $45 or something. And I can use that other whatever $33, to pay a bill, or buy food or whatever. Pay a copay on a doctor's visit. You just gotta think, and sometimes you gotta write things down and make lists and just, bite the bullet, man, and live in your own world. And that's what I'm doing, man. I'm living in the 1940s and 50s right now. This is a black and white TV show. I'm taking myself back, living in a simpler time. I don't care about these people. Yeah, I'm using modern day technology, but you know what? I was a geek, 40 years ago or so, or more. I was a geek since I was a kid, 50 years ago. I was always messing around with wires and things like that. Since I first could get my hands on, something to take apart, or whatever. And so, yeah, I accumulated technology. I learned it. It's just my thing. Someone else might be into something different. I mean, there's so many different things you do. I mean, I'm not the type of person that goes on hikes and jogs or any of that stuff. It's just not my scene. But a lot of people get enjoyment out of it. I worked with explorers who climbed peaks, mountain peaks, and went to the North Pole and the South Pole and all that kind of stuff. It's like, people have different things that give them a thrill, make them happy, fulfilled, whatever. Some people are just happy, raising a family and living a life in a neighborhood and having their friends or being around their family. My family's scattered with the wind, and of course, I'm older now, so there's deaths in the family, so it's not the same. And I live a life where I don't have the flexibility to travel long distances and stuff. But if you're one of those people that's around family and stuff like that, it could be a beautiful thing. If you're someone surrounded by a lot of friends, that's a beautiful thing. And there's a location. Some people are living in locations that are just, they take for granted. Quite frankly, I wish I retired down the shore, but it became so overpriced that it just wasn't realistic. It's the same as my even moving to this place. I've said these things many times. I'll say them again in the future. But I was paying 10 times what I'm paying now to live in an apartment, about 7 years ago. And I looked at my life and I said, and I was making enough money to pay the bills. And I was living a decent life. I mean, a good, high quality of life, doing different things and stuff. But I realized that was unsustainable, and the stress and the amount of work I was putting in to maintain that lifestyle just wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't for me, and I didn't see that be lasting forever. In other words, I realized, okay, well, there's going to come a day, when you're not going to be able to do this. Or the stress is going to, get to you, or maybe the income thing might not be there. So I wasn't going to wait to be, react to a situation 5 years down the road or even 10 years down the road. Instead, I was proactive and I planned, and it took me about close to a year, and I found this place. Like I say, it's not ideal, but it's, it is what it is, and it's not bad. And I have happiness. And I think, so the idea is, I think that I probably have more happy days, more happy moments at least, than people who are living at like a level, 20 or 30 times higher than I am, but that are stressed out or caught in some kind of trap. I mean, there's a certain freedom to this, and that's the, the thing you have to weigh. Do you want to be happy, or do you want to have a big house or a lot of materialistic things? Do you want to be a slave, a wage slave? Do you want to be a slave to your home? Have a house that's what they call underwater? Do you want to have, an expensive vehicle that's not going to last that long anyway? Or do you want to be free? The best things in life are free. Live life, a simple life. You're always going to find, if someone doesn't appreciate you because of your bank account or because of the quality of your car or the size of your house or something weird like that, or or the fact that you don't have a $5,000 purse or something weird like that, is that the kind of person you want to be with? And the other thing is, and if it even is that sustainable as you get older? Because the older you get, you inevitably have health problems, health issues and stuff. And inevitably, as less and less you can do, right? That's one of the realities of life. I say about this timeless thing. But it's like, when I say timeless, I mean timeless. Like out of time. You know, that's my new book, is A Man Out of Time. That's what it's going to be. And the idea is, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at that statement, that phrase, sentence. But the hell with time. The hell with this time. You know? I'll live the way I want to live. I'll find happiness my way, right? I don't need to be told how I should live, what I should do, right? I don't need a leader to lead me, to save me, right? I can deal with my own life, all right? And there's nothing to do with religion, just because I used the word save. You know, some people that triggered people. I hate that word. Triggered. There's no such thing as being triggered. That's a mental disease. If you're triggered by something, you got a mental problem. You know, you got a mental problem. You know, seek a psychiatrist. Right? If things are setting you off like that, you have a mental problem. Seek a psychiatrist. Counseling. All right? Because that's not normal. All right? Your brain, you got some. You need to consult somebody. All right? Happiness is very easy. You decide. You could find it. It'll find you sometimes. You just got to do some soul searching. Right? Like I say, put it down on a piece of paper. Sometimes you just have to see it. See those lists in front of you for it to like resonate in your bioelectric brain and let your consciousness overrule your subconsciousness, which is the programmed, indoctrinated, conditioned, and propagandized part of your bioelectric brain. Because that's not you. You are your consciousness. Or soul, whatever you want to call it. And life is a consciousness experience, a soul experience. Life is your experience. You are in charge of your own life. So just live it. And take the good with the bad. You know, I got crappy days, but I got good days. Like I said, cherish the moments and try to extend those moments when you are happy and you feel good, or if you just feel normal. It's like I say with a toothache or something. Cherish the time when your body is when you're just okay, right? When you're just living. Stop and say, hey, you know what? Hey, I don't have anything, nothing's like, I'm not in pain right now, or I don't have a thing, right? Become conscious of that, right? And appreciate it. Because there's going to be times when you're not going to be that. And so extend the good times. Pursue the good times. And don't allow people to manipulate and control your life. And that's all the media is doing. Media and politicians are just trying to control and manipulate you. And it's either for the purpose of trying to make you a wage slave so you buy and get in debt to purchase the things that they're trying to sell you, or to control you, to manipulate you so they could, increase their, power and wealth. You know, I mean, that's the reality of and it's not, nothing's new about any of this. This goes way back. This is, you know, this is ancient. Anyway, that's my babble for today, you know. It's like, you know, I don't know what else to say other than, you know.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy hump day. I'm going to stop the stream now. I know these things cut off real quick, but what can I say? You know, I don't know why that happens. So visit my website and get some stuff. All right? Get a t-shirt. Support this. I'll be back.